It'll be expensive to save the Crew, and it could be tougher to change the Ohio Constitution. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Jesse Balmert, State House reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer, Darrell Rowland, Public Affairs Editor for the Columbus Dispatch, Bob Clegg, Republican strategist, and Sandy Tice, Democratic strategist. When city leaders announced this fall they had come up with a plan to save the Columbus Crew, they lacked details: how much they would pay for the soccer team, who would pay for the planned downtown stadium. Now we have the answers. Plans call for a brand new 20,000-seat Crew Stadium on the western edge of the Arena District, the spot where the casino was supposed to be. The stadium will anchor a complex with offices, retail shops, bars and restaurants, and apartments or condos. The Crew's local owners would pay $150 million for the team and $230 million for the stadium. The public would chip in $100 million, half from the county, half from the city of Columbus. That would pay for roads and utilities near the stadium, as well as a sports complex at the site of the current Crew Stadium. Darrell Rowland, this deal came together very fast towards the end. It's an exciting project. I mean, it looks great on paper and those pictures, but the question is it a good investment? That's the questions critics are going to have.
Sure, and you're right. Those artist renderings, I mean, who wouldn't want that? Sitting in the stadium and the downtown buildings in the background, and good stuff going out there, and development in an area that there's nothing usable now, at least as far as the public is concerned. But, when it looks too good to be true, is it? You mentioned the public investment, and I think that's what most people are going to be most interested in. My tax dollars is going to be helping that. And again, the distinction they're making is not for the stadium per se, but for the surrounding infrastructure, for some of the land, something that government people point out we do for most any economic development. Now, again, and it's so great to be saving the Crew. You can't talk about this without an amazing feat that none of us really thought would happen. But I look at just as a layman and look at that location. I always thought when they put the casino there, we're talking about putting the casino there, how are you going to get in and out?
Yeah, it's a couple block walk to any parking lot.
Well, there's like two streets coming on and off of Spring Street there. And if you're talking about a 20,000 seat stadium and other shops and businesses and residentials back there. Yeah. And by the way, it's next to this river. Is that always going to stay in its banks? Again, I don't even play an engineer on TV, but it's like, I hope these things have been thought of.
Bob, is this a good investment, do you think?
All I know, it's $100 million. They have to get it through by the end of this month, correct?
Yes.
And there's no citizen input. I mean, how ironic. The City Council has just been dealing with a ticket tax that they're going to use the proceeds to fund the arts. Well, are these Crew tickets going to be part of the ticket tax? I mean, they seem like they just take this taxpayer money and just spend it and spend it and spend it. I think what will happen with the ticket tax, and I think should happen both on a county and a city level with this $100 million for the Crew, is that it should go to the ballot. And people should have a right to have a say in this. Now, I understand they're under a deadline, but that's a deadline from Major League Soccer.
Yeah, it's not a legal
deadline. I mean, yeah. So, I think the people, when we're talking $100 million, the people should have a right to have their voice heard.
Yeah, I joke. It's a deadline from a league that allows 0-0 ties.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about that. Jesse, Cincinnati, your hometown newspaper has dealt with stadium issues. They continue to deal with stadium issues, and it's an ongoing issue. How much money should the public invest in these valuable civic enterprises?
Mm-hmm. This situation with Columbus Crew reminds me so much of what we just went through with Football Club Cincinnati, which is joining the Major League Soccer, and they're looking to create a stadium themselves, and the money for the infrastructure surrounding it is coming from the county. Even the state pitched in some from the last capital budget, and so not a lot of public input into that taxpayer money being spent on these projects, with just the understanding that everyone's going to want to support this endeavor. And so there are critics of that approach, but also it was the way they felt like they could get the stadium to stay in that area.
Sandy?
Two things about this I really like. One is there was more private sector money in this than public sector money. And the other thing is they earmark 20% of the housing units for affordable housing. We have a terrible housing crisis in Columbus. We have a lot of homeless people, a lot of people who can't afford basic rent. And I think the last statistic I saw was that rent is growing at 3 times the average income increase. So if we can do something to ease the housing crisis with this, I think that's a good thing.
Is 20% enough? To me, it seems kind of on the low side.
It's high for these types of projects, so I think that's a good start, and I think it'll make an impact.
Sandy, that's a very good point. I think when we look at issues like affordable housing, we look at homelessness, we look at families that don't have enough food, we look at a school district that has needs a lot of help. Why aren't we thinking about spending taxpayer dollars for this? Why are we spending taxpayer dollars on entertainment for sports? It makes no sense.
The argument is, Daryl, it's the Confluence. What do they call it? The Confluence Park or what?
Right. Well,
whatever.
and don't forget,
it's retail, it's businesses. It's
well, and
offices.
step one of this was dealing with the existing Crew Stadium, Moffett Stadium, along I-71 there at the fairgrounds, and turning that into a community asset with some parks and some sports fields in an area, a general part of the city that is certainly underserved. People thought about this. That's got to come first. The other one came next. But there are some negative optics. Again, with a beautiful, shiny structure and saving the team, that's great. But negative optics about just being jammed through. The ticket tax has not been solved yet. On our previous, on the arena,
Yeah.
if you're going to challenge us, you've got like 30 days after the ordinance. That's over the holidays. You need, if I look up, 8,000 valid signatures or something like that.
Per
If
ordinance,
this is-
yeah.
Yeah, if this is going to go to 4, yeah. So it seems like instead of, hurry up and wait, it's wait and hurry up.
Well, this kind of reminds me, this was before my time in town here, but they've shut down public financing for Nationwide Arena, and they came up with this private financing plan, and the Hunts, who were all looking to get a team, said it was too good to be true and it wouldn't work. 20 years later, the city had to bail, the city and county had to bail the arena out. I wonder if this one here, completely public-private financed, but a cruise team that draws about the same as the Blue Jackets, you wonder if it's sustainable over the long haul.
Right.
We'll see. Next topic, it could be harder for Ohio citizens to change the state's constitution. Lawmakers are still looking at changes to the final version, but the plan looks like it would make it tougher to put an amendment on the ballot by shortening time frames to collect the required hundreds of thousands of signatures. And once on the ballot, 60% of voters would have to vote yes for the amendment to be approved. Supporters say the current system makes it too easy to change the Constitution, especially for wealthy out-of-state groups. Opponents say this proposed change is too tough and would eliminate an important tool to get lawmakers to act on controversial laws. Bob Clegg, you've worked on these amendments in the past.
Sure have.
What's your take on this?
Well, I'm very conflicted because I've made money off of these very amendments that were on the ballot. But I am also very aware that we have currently things in our Constitution that have no business being in our Constitution. Perfect example is what you just mentioned with regards to the Crew Stadium location, which was the original Columbus Casino location. Since the amendment that was on the ballot had the actual locations of the casinos, when they changed that, they had to go back on the ballot with another constitutional amendment to just change that location of that site. That has no business being in the Constitution. But I get why special interest groups that do put these things on the ballot do it that way, because it's much harder to change a constitutional amendment than if you do initiated statute route, which would make it a law, but then any legislature down the road could change it. So they're doing it because they want to protect their special interest.
Jesse, which has the bigger impact? Is it the shortening the time frames to gather signatures, or is that 60% threshold for passage on election day?
The thing I've heard more complaints about is the shortening of the time period. It's down to about 6 months, and the months that you would have to collect this would be some of the coldest in Ohio. I know not many people
County fairs
can't go to the county fairs. You'd be gathering signatures in the middle of December, and who wants to stop at the post office to answer a question about a constitutional amendment? So that is one concern. Raising the threshold is another one. I think what the lawmakers were trying to do was offer an alternative in, hey, don't go after the Constitution. Let's introduce a citizen-initiated statute, so propose a law. But the current version only, if it becomes law, the state lawmakers wouldn't be able to touch it for 1 year. That's a kind of short period of time, and groups are looking for more like 3 to 10 years to stop lawmakers from changing something that they just put in.
It takes them a year to change their socks.
Right. The reason
there's no deadline at all.
The reason why we're seeing all this, though, all these constitutional amendments, is because the legislators have been chickens, and they have not wanted to take on tough, complex, controversial topics, so they do nothing. And then private citizens or special interests come forth with something that is so over the top, like the casinos, that put constitutional monopolies for these special interests in our Constitution. So I think maybe we need to have our lawmakers show a little more courage.
Well, and I think we need to, look, we talk about special interests. Some of these have been citizen groups, and sometimes even when an issue does not get on the ballot, of course, it affects great change. As you all well know, we probably would not have redistricting reform in this state if it weren't for the threat, and indeed filled out petition forms, of putting that on the ballot and letting the public vote on it. And of course, every opinion poll shows the public is massively in favor of that. So
Medical marijuana is another one.
Absolutely. And then, you go back into the mid-2000s, the Reform Ohio Now amendments all got smashed, but they brought some change. They brought early voting, some campaign finance tinkering, things of that nature. So, it's always a balancing act. It's like both sides have valid points. Sure, it's too easy to get this trivial stuff in the Constitution, but it's kind of the best vestige of direct democracy we have in this state.
You can't change the federal Constitution. I mean, you can't pass a law in Congress and then go to the ballot 6 months or a year later. But Jesse, so why not make it really, really tough to change the state constitution?
I think that's what the state lawmakers are trying to do. I think the reason why people go after the Constitution instead of a state law is because it's permanent and they know it won't be touched. And I think that's just why it's the option that's always pursued, nearly always.
Is there a silent lobbying group out there that doesn't want, like you said, you can make money on these, so there's a lobbyist, there's a lobbyist industry and a consulting industry that says, we like these things every couple of years.
Well, I don't know if it's, like political consulting, but I mean, there are a lot of interest groups in general that like to have that option of going the constitutional amendment route. And also, Daryl's right, some of these have been citizen, things that have been started. But to be honest, the ones that have been most successful are the ones that are tied to large amounts of money and can get, like casinos, perfect example. And they had the money to get these things passed. It's really, really tough to get amendments passed once they're on the ballot. A 60% threshold is pretty high. Yeah, Florida has that. And it's tough to get things passed when it's that high.
All right. Some other hot-button lame duck bills are finding their fates. The so-called Heartbeat anti-abortion bill looks like it'll have to wait. This was the bill that would ban abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected. Lawmakers have delayed a vote, likely meaning the next legislature and next governor, Mike DeWine, will have to act on it. The so-called Stand Your Ground gun bill could be renamed to You Still Have to Run Away gun bill. In a compromise, lawmakers kept the legal requirement to flee before using deadly force, but the new bill shifts the burden of proof in self-defense cases from the defendant to the prosecutor. Jesse Ballmert, first on the Stand Your Ground, why back away from that? What was going on?
Yeah, we need a new name for this bill. It's like the artist formerly known as Stand Your Ground bill right now. So I think there was concern, especially among the Ohio Senate, that this is something that they thought was a little bridge too far. And there was also a threat from Governor John Kasich that he would veto something that had that basically eliminated the duty to retreat in a public place before using deadly force, which is the language that, made this a stand your ground type bill. So ultimately, yesterday, they took that language out. What remains is a bill that changes the burden of proof from the person who did the shooting to prove that they acted in self-defense to the prosecutor to prove that the person did not act in self-defense.
And Daryl, we're like the only state that has that, where the person who's accused has to prove their innocence, which is really kind of opposite of what the Constitution calls for.
Well, right. I mean, that's been a change across the country in the last several years, and Ohio was kind of the last holdout. It's intriguing. We haven't seen gun bills. I mean, I guess you can't say this gun bill failed, but certainly the meat of it, the stand your ground part, the sort of the most controversial part, did indeed fall short in the Ohio legislature in the year 2018. Who would have thunk?
Are we seeing a change in attitudes on gun bills, or is it just,
I think it's starting to soften a little bit. I think all the young people who are getting involved and the moms groups are really active. And we've had a lot of mass shootings, and how do you continue to do the same thing and have no change?
were they counting heads, do you think? And they just saw that Kasich was going to veto it?
Exactly. I was just going to say that I think the Senate looked at the numbers and they saw that, you know what? We don't really have to worry about this because we can wait for Governor DeWine to come in. It's not like we have Governor Cordray coming in. So my guess is we're not done with this.
The heartbeat bill looks like that is on hold. Similar situation. The legislature's not going to change. Governor-elect DeWine says he would sign it, so they just punted to the next session. Was it as simple as that, Jesse?
I think that's likely what's going to end up happening. The committee is going to be looking at this bill next week. It might receive a vote. I think I'd be a little surprised if it gets a full Senate vote. The argument is from people who are supporting this bill is, hey, it's here, let's get it done now, even though John Kasich has said that he would veto it. I think other folks are looking at it and saying, hey, if Governor-elect Mike DeWine is going to sign this, let's just wait a few months.
There is another hearing on the bill next week, and there's some new rumors that are just starting to surface that maybe they're going to let this bill die. And then there's another anti-abortion bill. It would effectively outlaw abortion after 13 weeks. So it's sort of heartbeat light. And this would be the compromise for the anti-choice crowds and give them something to hang their hats on.
Sandy, you're on the board of NARAL as well. We should mention that. But do you think Mike DeWine will sign this?
He said he would. He said he would, and this is a bill that would criminalize this procedure, would lock up doctors who perform them, patients who have them. It is clearly unconstitutional. In fact, Mississippi federal judge just threw out a 14-week ban in Mississippi. So I want to apologize. I think on one of your previous shows, I called Ohio the Mississippi of the North. That's not fair to Mississippi now.
Sandy, I think we need to run this through run it through the courts and see what happens. Let's take it to the Supreme Court. Let's see what happens. I think it's time to do that. Yeah, the Governor-elect DeWine will sign it. What was interesting about this most recent election was the fact that the governor-elect's position on abortion was actually a campaign issue. I mean, Richard Cordray made it very evident that he thought that Mike DeWine's position, which is no exceptions, even with the case of rape and incest, was too extreme. Now, either a majority of the people of Ohio agree with Mike DeWine on that, or they don't have abortion as that high of an issue, or a combination of both, which is what I think is what's going on.
Polling consistently has showed that a strong majority of Ohioans believe that abortion should be legal under most circumstances. I think they like the status quo, they like the viability test in the current Supreme Court ruling. And I've talked to people afterwards who were surprised at how extreme Mike DeWine was on the abortion issue, which just broke my heart.
It's a issue that he has been consistent on for 40-some years in his political career. He has never tried to hide it. He's always been very upfront about it, and he even tackled it up front in this election. And if it would have been a problem with people, he wouldn't have been elected governor.
Getting back to these lame duck sessions, are they a good idea, Daryl? I mean, it's just... You look at Ohio, there's no real change in power. The governor's in the same party. The governor-elect is in the same party. But you look at what's going on in Michigan and Wisconsin. You look at, these things that they're rushing through at the last minute before some lawmakers leave. It just seems like if you're on your way out, you shouldn't be able to change the law.
You're kind of stealing my closing thought here. I keep reminding, back when I was in 6th grade and, you got all this time to do the science fair project, but somehow the night before you're out, buying the baking soda or whatever to make those volcanoes or whatever. There was this due the next day, and your parents are saying, "Why didn't you do this beforehand?" The legislature, a bunch of 6th graders sometimes. It's talk about again, wait and hurry up. What are they? Okay, why do you need 6 months a year to campaign for mostly safe seats.
But-
At the end of the session, especially when there's going to be a change in power. But, deadlines,
Yeah.
it's one of the greatest motivators in politics.
But Mike, they're elected for 2 or 4 year terms, and there's nothing in that term that says, "Hey, but you really can't vote on a lot of stuff after the election of your." So I mean, they are doing it all within their legal right.
But you hear the stories of people who have been allowed to pursue other opportunities at their office, getting let go, and they got to leave right away. They can't sit around for a month.
And they're escorted out the
they're escorted
door.
out the door. Jesse, that doesn't happen with lame duck legislation.
Yeah, and you figure some of these people who lost their primary have been lame ducks for quite some time.
That
so
raises a whole
you
nother
have
issue.
those circumstances. But as a person who doesn't enjoy being at the Ohio State House at 2 a.m., I'm always happy when lame duck is over. But so far, we haven't had too late of days. Let's just hope that keeps going.
You just hexed yourself, you realize.
Maybe just a curfew.
This is my plea to the Speaker and Senate President.
All right. Of course, the big story this week was not about spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a new stadium or major changes to state law. It was who is going to coach the Buckeyes next year. It won't be Urban Meyer. It'll be Ryan Day. Meyer this week announced his retirement. After 7 seasons leading OSU football, Meyer says he is leaving coaching because of his health. He's been suffering frequent and severe headaches, but he says he wants to stick around.
I love Columbus. I love Muirfield, where I live. I've always been a Buckeye as long as I can remember. I believe in Ohio State. I believe in the spirit when you walk around this campus. I believe in Buckeye Nation because I lived it my entire life.
Of course, Meyer's retirement comes after a tumultuous season in which OSU suspended him for 3 games for the way he handled domestic violence allegations against a former assistant coach. Sandy Tice, I say you're the biggest Buckeye fan at this table. Are you surprised by this, and do you think it's purely health reasons why he's leaving?
I think it was largely driven by health reasons. He was a terrific coach on the field. He won a national championship. He always beat Michigan. I don't think we have any Michigan fans here, and sometimes we do. Off the field, I think it's a little more cloudy, and I would really like to see Ohio and all kinds of other people do something and take domestic violence charges more seriously. Chris Jordan is a member of the legislature. He was accused of it by his wife once upon a time. There was some videotape that surfaced during divorce proceedings where his wife said he threw a slab of frozen bacon at her as she held their infant child. Nobody seems to be talking about that.
Well, I think this one did get a lot of attention, and you could argue, Bob, that it exacerbated his headaches because of the stress of the situation.
Well, he said himself that had some, part of it, but I think it was basically health, spending time with his family. We also have to remember he came in at a really bad time. We had just had problems with Jim Tressel with a scandal. We had a season that we were like 6-6, 7-7, something like that. Not a great season. And he came in and he made that program work, and to the point of getting a national championship out of it.
Was he too intense? I mean, it's hard to.
No such
Football coaches are always intense, but at some point, there's got to be a.
Well, I think the image that's indelible in all our minds, at least anyone who's watched Ohio State games, is Urban Meyer doing this, and I mean, certainly the Buckeyes over the years have given him pained expressions, and good reason for pained expressions from time to time, but this year it just seemed like this dude is hurting, and. If you're talking about risking, your health, even as intense as you are, he talks about loving Muirfield, loving Ohio State. He loves coaching football.
Yeah.
But to give that up now, I don't know. I had a coworker bet me lunch that he would be back coaching someday.
Yeah.
And I didn't take him up on it.
Should there be term limits on coaches? I mean, for them and for the college. You see these coaches that stay, like Joe Paterno or Bobby Knight, stay forever, and they become untouchable. I think Gene Smith kind of alluded that 10 years is a good run for a coach.
Yeah, well, I think if not for the health problems, Urban Meyer might have stayed a little bit longer, and I don't think Buckeye fans would be sad about that option. But I think you need to know when it's time to go, and perhaps this is the best time for Urban Meyer.
All right. Well, it's now time for our final off-the-record parting shots. Sandy, you're up first.
The General Assembly for many years has had the ability to let the public listen to every committee hearing and watch many of them, and they've chosen not to do that. I watched all the testimony during the 6-week ban, lots of doctors, lots of patients, incredibly emotional testimony. They could flip a switch and have the committee hearings turned on in 30 minutes. I would love to see that happen.
Bob.
We've laid to rest this week a great statesman and war hero, George H.W. Bush, our 41st President of the United States. But more importantly, I think he was a kind, decent man. And those were qualities I don't think people appreciated when he was Vice President and President over the 12 years that he was. I see it this week, though, that they are starting to appreciate it. Maybe it's better late than never.
Darrell.
I'm going to talk about pharmacy benefit managers. It's been a topic we in the Dispatch have written more than 6 articles about. And we still have to look ourselves up in the dictionary. What is a pharmacy benefit manager? But know this, it's cost Ohioans over $200 million. We've totally revamped the system. In this week's Dispatch, we're going to look at how this is taken on a nationwide total. Many states are looking at Ohio, frankly looking at our stories to see what can we do in our state that Ohio is already doing.
And Jesse.
And in the legislature this week, they've been saying farewell to a bunch of lawmakers who are leaving after lame duck session and just kind of enjoying the bipartisan back and forth. Alicia Reese from Cincinnati area, who was leaving, talked about how she brought film credits there and how she did it for Denzel Washington.
My prediction is, that sports complex they're going to build where the current Crew Stadium is remarkably similar to one they were going to build near Ohio State, where they were going to have the Browns training camp. Of course, the Crew will be owned by the Browns owner. Alex Fisher says they haven't talked about Browns training camp off of I-71, but my guess is they will talk about Browns training camp in that sports complex. That's Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and our website, WOSU.org. For our crew and panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.